The Around the NFL podcast has never covered a Jets playoff game.
Not yet, baby. From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus. Got heroes here. Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler. Football, man. How lucky are we? What a great job this is. What a great sport this is. The product that the league puts out there is unbelievable. And I just pinch myself because this is just such a great time to be alive doing what we do. And that goes for all the listeners and viewers of football, which is just great. Love football.
I back what you're saying. Each of the bullet points that you just verbalized, I agree with. I do think that your spirit and your mood.
Yes.
It's not a but. It's just more of I do believe that your spirit and mood has been elevated and lifted by specific events today, as characterized by the word on your sweatshirt.
He's wearing a Jets sweatshirt.
I didn't think of that until you said that, but perhaps that's why I love sports so much and why football is such a fun sport.
Although, I know the Jets, one of the best wins, maybe the best win of the ATN area. It's up there. But I would like to think,
easily.
You are loyal to football too. I'm not the only one. And the Week 9 slate in the early window, and then
absolutely.
even Tom Brady there at the end in the late window delivered so much as a whole that I think Dan would have a little bounce in his step no matter what.
Let's say the Jets had been heavily and mercilessly waxed by Buffalo. We're not getting that opening speech, and I'm glad we're getting it, and I'm glad it happened for you.
Listen. A lot of people thought the Jets would be destroyed on Sunday. Maybe the man across from me, Marc Sessler, hinted at it repeatedly heading into Sunday.
What I said was that a 24-20 loss would be a win for them.
You can't give us that no one believed in us when you didn't believe in them, really.
All I can tell you is that this is an amazing sport, football. And I'm happy to be here with you guys, my friends.
I'm with you.
I agree. It's more statements I agree with.
So why don't we, you know what? Yeah, why don't we? Why don't we start with the game that was played in northern New Jersey today? Because there's been a lot of good football.
You're making me uncomfortable. This version of Dan, I don't know who he is.
Where else would we start?
Neither do I. I don't know what's happening. Let's go check it out. The Jets and the Bills.
The Jets lead by 3, 4th and 21. As Allen drops back to throw at his own 5-yard line, scrambling to his left, buying time, looking downfield, leaves a bomb for Davis. Sauce Gardner's there. It's knocked away. Sauce Gardner in position on Gabe Davis, knocks it away, and the Jets are going to take a knee and win it here at MetLife Stadium.
Kung. Bob Wischusen with the call, WEPN. The baby Jets. They're all grown up, and they're all grown up, and they're all grown up. Josh Allen dared to challenge Sauce Gardner with the game on the line. Zach Wilson threw a touchdown pass and played smart and efficient football. And Greg the Legs Zuerlein kicked the go-ahead 28-yard field goal with 1:43 to play. It was the clinching points of a 20-17 win over the Buffalo Bills, widely believed to be the best team in football entering this Sunday. And Mark, so many things from a Jets standpoint went right in this game. They played their best, most complete game against their toughest opponent and have a season-changing win as a result. And, it feels good right now to be a Jets fan. It really does.
I mean, if you go back to when the Jets were a factor way back when with Darrelle Revis, with that elite defense, you're seeing the DNA strands of an elite defense here. And the one thing we did talk about on Thursday, I wasn't being negative about the Jets. I said, you need your young players, your young heroes like Sauce Gardner to show up, and you need to cause chaos for Buffalo, and Buffalo's going to need to be coaxed into some uncharacteristic meltdowns and mistakes. All of that happened. I also just said I'm not sure I believe in this team based on where they are at quarterback. They played around that today, and they did everything they needed to do, and it is a legit Jets win that makes them a legit competitor and contestant in the AFC. This is not a fluke. There are really things happening with this Jets team under Robert Saleh that suggest that they are growing quickly.
The defense has been here pretty much all season. I knew they would show up in this game, and that's what made last week against the Patriots so disappointing, because they showed up that week too, but the quarterback didn't show up in the second half. So the fact that Wilson was able to correct a lot of the mistakes that define the loss to New England, that's all he needs to do. Like, his job, Zach Wilson, is to be competent, hit the throws when they come available, maybe mix in a big play, and don't kill them with turnovers, because their defense, Greg, is now hitting a level. And remember, this was a historically bad defense when Saleh took over just last year. Is at a level now where they could shut down any opponent, including Josh Allen and the Bills.
It's crazy. That throw Josh Allen made, you must have been sweating out, because it felt like that Tecmo Bowl play where there's a glitch and the ball just keeps going and going and going forever.
Not bad with a bad elbow.
Just with my eyes, it looked like about 70 plus air yards, which is insane. But then so fitting that it's Gardner there at the end. I said that was the matchup I was looking forward to. You can tell me more about it. Jets defense versus Bills offense. The fact that Allen ends with 2 interceptions, only 205 yards passing on 34 attempts is major, and this is a running and defense year. Most years, you would think that they can't stick around to the end because you need the passing game, but this is more of a running and defense year, and we're seeing teams like the Jets survive week to week and thrive.
Yeah, they have a great secondary, led by Sauce, of course, who to me is the defensive rookie of the year. DJ Reed is the guy that kind of has been under the radar as another guy that's playing at a Pro Bowl level. So when you have that, going back to those teams you're talking about, Mark, that's when the Jets had Revis and Antonio Cromartie, that could change, flip the field for them and limit what any team could do. This is their strength, their defense, and their offense has been up and down at quarterback. It's been impacted by injuries, but the defense has been here all year long. Josh Allen,
and they ran for 174 yards. That's the thing.
Yes, and they didn't have a great running day until it mattered, because they took over with about 8 minutes to play. They got the ball at their own 4. Game tied at 17. They were down by 11, I believe, at one point, the Jets, and they went all the way inside the Bills' red zone on 8 straight running plays. And then when the clock got to a point where they needed to throw the ball, they didn't have to, but they said, on third down, we're going to ask Zach to do something. He found, of all people, Denzel Mims for a huge first down that not only allowed them to get into chip shot range, even though that drive stalled and ended with the field goal, it put Josh Allen in a situation where he had no timeouts and no margin for error. So when they get a holding call and then a crushing sack fumble, it essentially puts the game away. So the running game showing up with Breece Hall gone was huge, and Josh Allen struggles. He was a little sloppy with the ball the previous week, as we know.
4 interceptions in 2 starts.
And in this game, the interceptions were bad.
Yeah.
They were poor decisions. One was inside the Jets' red zone very early in the game after a long Diggs completion. And in general, he just did not look comfortable. I talked about the stat that his numbers really fall off. You could probably say this about a lot of quarterbacks with their number one receiver, but if you could neutralize Diggs, which the Jets largely did other than the first big completion on the first play from scrimmage, you can get the Bills in a little bit more of a vulnerable position, and that's what happened because Diggs was mostly silent after that first big play, and they didn't have someone else they could turn to.
And it stands out because who's made the Bills uncomfortable this season? Essentially no one, other than that, like a couple moments here and there. I mean, it were 2 bad picks by Allen, and I mean, week after week, the Jets defense is doing this, and it's your kryptonite in the AFC. If you can do this to Buffalo, you can beat anyone.
Well, they gave him a taste of the Bills' medicine. I saw a stat they only blitzed Allen twice. It's the fewest he's been blitzed this season, certainly, or the second least he's ever been blitzed in his career.
And he lost that game too.
They don't need to. They got tons of pressure. They got sacks. He got loose for some running plays in this game. But the fact that they can do what the Bills do on defense, which is not blitz and create a lot of pressure, I mean, that's kind of the skeleton key here. And Allen will give you a chance. Like, there's this idea that, he's been a little sloppy the last couple of weeks. After this week, he might lead the league in turnover-worthy plays. He still has that gene in him where he'll give you a chance a couple times a game, and he more than makes up for it. He'll be number 2 in my MVP race, but he'll give you a chance a couple times, and when you're a great defense like the Jets, you take advantage.
If you look at the Jets' last 5 weeks, the amount of yardage they've given up through the air, 178, 158, 218, 219, 161, and then what happened today. Where, if you look at the Diggs' box score, he almost had 100 yards, but they largely shut him down in the second half. And so much has to do with their defensive backfield.
Yeah, it was just a great performance all around. They were down to 4 at the half, but and I tweeted about it at the time, like, you felt like the whole team had showed up. A lot of Bills fans traveled and were in MetLife Stadium, but the Jets crowd was a good one as well. It was a really good vibe, and they go into their bye week on this, so it's a great time to hit your bye and try to get a little more healthy, and then you come out and you get a rematch against the Patriots. So.
And egged on by the reporters, they were already talking up that game, like, we can't wait. We shall
2
see.
Weeks of hype. But it is.
He's definitely hit the weight room. It's beefy.
He does. And I'm excited to see. I'm curious for your guys' reaction when you watch Zach Wilson, because I thought you could definitely see him learn from some things that happened last week. Even his last play from scrimmage, it was kind of a broken play, and you could see him being very wise about, I am not going to lose this game after this amazing drive on a fumble here, getting taken down. You could tell he's just playing smarter.
It's encouraging.
Encouraging
season,
all the way around.
But the Bills are 0-2 in the division, and now they have 2 losses, which ties the Chiefs. I know it's a long season, but it just opens up this AFC East a little bit in a way that you wouldn't have thought.
The Jets are a half game out of the AFC East lead with the tiebreaker right now in the Bills. How about that? But you don't want to hear anything more from me. You want to hear from a different member of the Hanzus family.
His name is Keith. He's Dan's dad. No doubt about it, he's a big Jets fan. What is he gonna say about the game today? What is he gonna say about the game today?
What a great win for the Jets. 2017 beating the Buffalo Bills. Now, was that an exciting game? I thought it was a tremendous comeback, the way they hung in there with them and they stopped Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And 6-3, if you would have told anybody they'd be 6-3 after 9 games, going into the bye, and then they're going to play New England again, let's see what they can do. Go Jets, Jets, Jets.
How about that?
Oh, wow.
How about a little perspiration on Keith's shirt? He was sweating it out with the rest of us.
I mean, he's been waiting forever.
It's been a long time.
It has to feel. Is there an element of it being entirely surreal? Like, are you catching up to what's happening in real time?
There is a surreal vibe around the fan base right now, because it really doesn't, like,
so
this
there's
didn't
no more
feel...
doom and gloom. If they have a bad loss, let's say against the Patriots coming out of the bye, you're not going to give up hope again.
Think
right?
where you were a fortnight ago.
I can, as a fan, there are highs and lows. That's just part of the experience. But right now, that was very low then. Very high now.
You know what else? We're always getting banged by the listeners for talking about the Jets too much. And I think there's times where that's a relevant comment. Well, not this time, so shut up.
Yeah. Well,
I like the listeners, so I'm sort of saying that to anyone that wants to create a rabble-rouse this week. You just don't do it this week.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back on Tuesday with another episode. Oh, there's more.
I'm just playing. I'm playing bad cop.
There is more. I know when you came into the office today, you were like, "How about that, Greggy?" And for a second, it was like, "Of course you were talking about the Jets," but I wasn't sure what you were talking about because there has been other football. It's a lot of other things.
To that point, like, it doesn't matter what I say to you.
Yeah.
Almost always when I say something to Greg, his first thing is like, "What?" And then I have to clarify to Greg.
I have a thing.
It's just a little fog. There's a fog around Greg.
I'm watching
sometimes.
what's in front of me, and then it takes a second and I have to register.
I wonder where that haze
happened.
is coming from.
It's just
I have my theories.
Smoky haze.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I have theories.
All right, there was more football. In fact, let's go through all of these early games because we had, I think, 5 games decided by a field goal. So let's head to another one in Detroit.
Rodgers back. He's got it. Looking. Pressure. Throws it up for grabs in the end zone. Incomplete. Ball game over. Boys, let's get out of here. 4-game losing streak over, and man, did this team need that.
This football is great. What a sport.
Well, now they've won me over.
Dan Miller with the call, WXYT. The Detroit Lions became the latest defense to shut down Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, getting the big stop on 4th down in the final minute to seal a 15-9 win. That, yes, as you heard from Dan Miller, finally the Lions get that second W. And the Green Bay Packers, for I believe the first time in the Aaron Rodgers era when he's the quarterback, have lost 5 straight games. And this was another one, guys. This is another game from my draft. Nice draft by Zeuser on a big spot. Another game where the plays were there. It was there for the Packers to do what every other team has done against the Lions, which is hang 400-plus total yards and 27 to 35 points or whatever, but just failure to execute over and over. And for a guy that went on a major radio podcast show recently and publicly said that members of his team, his teammates, need to be losing playing time and having their reps cut, to then go to Ford Field and play the game that Aaron Rodgers played, where he threw 2 end zone interceptions, bad ones. He threw another ball, a deep pass that would have been a touchdown if he just puts the right throw out there. He underthrows his, I don't remember if it was Lazard, I believe, or maybe it was, I'm not sure who it was actually, but he underthrows that receiver all throughout the game. He's missing throws, and it's not only Aaron Rodgers is not the only reason they lose this game, and credit is due to the Lions and my boy Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, who's been under fire, obviously, with the rest of that coaching staff. But seeing Rodgers leaving yards and points on the field every week is stunning. Seeing it against a Detroit defense that's been historically inept is a whole other level to this.
A Detroit defense that had 2 interceptions all year, that couldn't stop anyone through the air or on the ground, and to have Aaron Rodgers end the game with 4 incompletions, and to have him still show this frustration that seems to be beamed out and aimed at everyone but himself. I find the whole situation very problematic. They've got the Cowboys, Titans, and Eagles up yet next, and no humble brag, but I said on Thursday I'm not sure they get to 7 wins, and 7 wins would be a nice finish to their season.
Well, you can't humble brag about your lack of belief in the team of ATN. This is why you never give up on the team of ATN.
Never. I never doubted them.
They're on a 1-game winning streak. This was their Super Bowl.
I didn't give up on them. I wasn't enjoying the experience.
They got the same.
Nor was I.
Same losses. Same loss column.
When
here.
they bleed, we bleed. Honolulu Blue.
That's right.
They got the great defensive game for the Lions. In terms of being. Opportunistic and everything. But essentially, they also had their worst offensive game of the year. The Packers defense did as much as they've done all year, giving up only 254 yards. They were put in a bad position by their offense all game, and it still didn't matter, it's shocking, the post-game quotes from Rodgers.
You want to hear Rodgers?
Let's hear it.
Here's Rodgers talking about, what's gone wrong.
Well, I played but I never gave up. Obviously, I don't want to lead us in rushing, but I knew I was going to have to make some plays with my legs, and that's really moving forward. I'm going to have to keep doing things like that. I feel like we never gave up. I mean, we moved the ball well in the first half, and I threw a couple picks in the end zone, took points off the board. So that obviously came back to hurt us down the stretch.
Look, I know they didn't run the ball great when they did try today. Aaron Jones got banged up, and I think they had 59 yards between Dillon and Jones. But the comment that mattered more to me than that post-game one was one that Aaron Rodgers made to Erin Andrews during the week, who he has a pretty close relationship with. And he's told her, I want to go down swinging. Instead of last week where they were really focusing on the run and people were trying to, give them kudos for running the ball so much. He's like, if I'm going to go down, I want to go down swinging. And he's talking about throwing the ball deep down the field. And they tried it today. It didn't work.
It did not work. And, for the Lions, I thought, they're still a team with a lot of problems. I don't think this is we're going to see them making a charge here necessarily, but at the same time, it has to be a total relief for everyone in that building. And on this show, it's become a sad tradition of the team of ATN to hear Dan Campbell be sad in his post-game press conference. So let's hear Dan Campbell be happy for once.
Oh, at last.
Listen, of course it feels good. I'll be honest with you, I'm exhausted. So, like, I just, I want to go home, put the feet up, drink a beer, and,
I love it.
I get it.
I'm not giving up on them. They got the Bears. I'm saying they got the Bears and the Giants next.
Right.
Win those 2 games to get to 4-6. I know that's tough. 2 road games, but it's possible.
Tall order.
And then you at least get to Thanksgiving against the Bills. Why'd they give them the Bills on Thanksgiving? With
the Bills are
some
nothing.
momentum.
Anybody could take down the Bills.
They're playing the Bills on Thanksgiving?
That is.
Why do they do that to these teams?
That is tough.
What are you doing? I mean, I get you can't have them playing a dud because then it's an unwatchable game. But
it's true.
That's absurd.
Yes. So the Lions improved to 2-6, 2-3 at home, and I worry that Justin Fields might have 1,000 total yards against the Lions, but maybe this is a defense that will start to get some momentum off this. Aiden Hutchinson had his first interception of any kind. I believe there was a quote after the game. He never even had one in high school or Pop Warner or anything else. So nice win. And for the Packers, we talked about it on the Thursday show also, like, man, you don't go into Ford Field and hang a bunch of points on the Lions and get healthy, you have a major problem. The Packers have a major problem.
Well,
some of it is directly tied to the quarterback who is pointing
acid
fingers
test.
In other directions.
That was your acid test. You failed your season. If I had a fork on me, I would fork them right now.
Ooh.
I don't need to spend another week or 2 hanging around wondering, because I don't even care if they go on a hot streak. I don't buy them as anything more than
You're loving this.
a trash barge floating down the dark river.
I mean, you've been waiting for this for 7 years, and then you picked against the Commanders. You picked them as your lock 3 weeks ago, and you said
Hell
you were
hath
done.
no fury like a Sessy
And honestly,
scorned.
I almost. Well, I don't know if I could lock this. I think I tried to lock them again this time. I was going to turn around and do that, and it was like, I'm glad that would have really.
Oh my gosh!
I would have driven home.
All right,
you're right with his deep balls aren't getting there all the time, and this was an indoor game. It's a little
But you know what?
He's 40. He is 40 years old.
He's not 40.
He's 40, isn't he? Am I crazy?
How many interceptions did he have a year ago?
He's turning 39. He's turning 39 in 1 month. But the weird thing is, and we got to move on, but the weird thing about watching Rodgers in this game, he still moves really well. He'll spin. He'll make some beautiful throws. Like, that's Aaron Rodgers. But then he misses so many throws this year. It's just been a different guy. There will not be 3 straight MVPs for number 12.
He has as many picks as he did all last year.
Let's take a break, and we will welcome in our buddy Shook. Welcome back. Before we bring in Shooky for a 1-game cameo this week, did you see Fox trying to pump up the Cowboys-Packers game?
Don't get me started on this. Greg and I were talking about this all
rivalry renewed?
Yeah, it's just like
Hook?
I guess if you're like the most, you have to be the most super cash fan to not get that one of these teams is like totally spinning down the drain.
Rivalry renewed, and they're like showing shots of Dak caught it. It's like, what am I missing? Why is this now renewed?
There was zero irony to the commercial.
I mean, one of the teams was great in the 60s, the 1960s, and then one was great in the 1970s.
Right.
And they've been great at various points since.
It's some 90s clashes.
But they're suggesting, by saying that now it is a rivalry renewed, they're suggesting that the recent years, like during the run of this podcast, they haven't been rivals or it hasn't been a big deal, but now it is when the Packers are one of the worst teams in the NFC.
They pushed it hard. They should have just had a big picture of Mike McCarthy and say, Zaddy's going to get his revenge. How about that?
That's a better ad campaign.
Let's check in with a future Zaddy as we get to our next game.
Whoa, don't put that on him.
Stop it. Come on, Greg. Here we go.
Yeah, come on, Greg is right.
Kicks down, 27 yards, snap spot. The kick is up. And good! G-Money! Greg Joseph has kicked the Minnesota Vikings to a 20-17 lead.
So you have to understand the history of the Minnesota Vikings to understand why on a chip shot field goal, Paul Allen, who's called every miserable field goal moment in Vikings history. How nervous he sounds there. Come on, Gregg.
Right.
We need you here.
Yep.
Anyway, KFAN there. Kirk Cousins leads another comeback victory, and everyone likes it. 20-17. Well, the Commanders don't, but that's the way it is for the Commanders, whose winning streak is over. We now welcome in Nick Shook, future Zaddy, in my opinion. Shooky, the Vikings are really difficult to figure out. I feel like we're going to have this conversation again because in this game, they're the better team. They're a superior team with a better roster, and yet they're sweating out a game against Washington in which they were trailing by double digits, I believe, at one point.
Yeah, double digits in the fourth quarter, and it looked like Washington was about one more play from pulling away, and they just did barely enough and got enough little mistakes by Washington to stay in the game. Couple long passes to Justin Jefferson, one early on the first touchdown drive, another to keep that drive alive that led to a field goal that made it a one-score game. Then they get the timely interception, and that's basically how they got back in the game. But, as I wrote in the What We Learned, they had a great opening drive. They got out and scored a touchdown. Everything's looking good, and then they just fell asleep. Yes, thank you. I try to get the plug in, Greg.
Well, What We Learned is an underrated column on NFL.com, really summarizing everything in succinct manner every week.
Now,
That's right.
It's the top article in the news stack on NFL.com. And Shook, everyone should know, this shouldn't be a surprise, but Shook is the lead writer, whether that's official or not. He is the lead writer. He gets to choose which games to watch, and it runs and breathes through Shook.
A valuable employee, to say the least.
Well, first off, I feel like I'm listening to a Wikipedia readout of What We Learned actually is. And secondly, you guys know I pick my games to fit the podcast, so it all runs
Hey, don't try to ruin the mirage. This is Hollywood.
Nope, I'm bringing it back down.
This is show business, see? Let's check. Let me just throw to this because this was fun. Kirk Cousins, who, again, was on a team that played in Minnesota called the Vikings last year that blew every game that they're now winning, and it's leading to the rebirth. You want to talk about something renewed. You like that is renewed. Let's check this out.
Go! You like that on 3, 1, 2, 3! You like it!
Shook, do you think that the teammate, it seems like they kind of like Kirk? It's kind of like a nice little vibe there.
They like him enough that they put all of their chains around his neck, which had to be about 50 pounds. He's shirtless on the plane.
That video is great.
Are dancing in the aisle in the plane
Good
with
vibes.
him wearing all of their jewelry because we know it's not his jewelry. We know he's not wearing a chain to the stadium. My personal opinion on you like that. It's played out. It was a Washington thing. Fans in Washington.
But they were in Washington. I think that's why he did it here. This was a little extra.
Yeah, they started mocking him. Fans were doing a "you like that" chant in the stadium when they were up by 10 points. So, of course, he gets the last laugh. But far from a perfect performance for him, for sure.
I hear you, but the play, if you're watching on YouTube that we happen to be looking at right now, 3rd and 7, 12 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game. They're down 10. They don't pick up that first down, they might not win. And Kirk uncorks a beauty. Here's the thing about Kirk Cousins. He's a beautiful thrower of the football when he's protected. And actually, that play, he wasn't protected. He did it under pressure. But he isn't playing any better this year, I don't think, than he normally plays. But that was a big-time throw in a big moment and helped start the comeback.
And
it was a big time throw in a moment in which right before he had thrown an interception that was brought back by defensive pass interference on Benjamin St. Jude.
Once again, don't ruin the Hollywood story here that we're trying to spin.
There is something.
I got to bring it back down to earth.
There is something about the offense that I can never trust. And you alluded to it, but they went 78 yards on 9 plays, and then they go 6 punts and an interception. It's like, what happens, Mark, when the competition gets better and they go into these funks, and then you're putting a lot of stress on your defense to keep you in the game? I don't know if Minnesota's truly been tested yet, but credit to them for piling up wins.
I got a text from a Vikings fan who's been listening to this show since day one, and he was like, I don't want to hear any nonsense about the Vikings offense going to sleep like they normally do because we're 7-1 and deal with it. So they are survivors. They've survived in a way they didn't last year through some of their darker moments. I want to ask you one question, though, Shook. There was a play here where Curtis Samuel had a
Somebody
touchdown.
your friend. Like, just tell him to chill.
Well,
it's our job.
You
to
guys met him
study
at the
this.
Minnesota Super Bowl, and he loves you guys.
Great guy.
So he's a great guy.
I get it.
But
Enjoy
it's our
the
job.
moment.
We have to.
You know
We
what?
must.
Let the Vikings have a little bit of edge right
they're
now.
5 losses up on the Packers right
They're
now.
going to win that division.
And they have to play at Buffalo next week, so enjoy this week while you can because you're getting angry Bills. You're getting angry Bills.
You're getting angry Bills, but you know what? That's a great test for the Vikings. That's perfect. You have to show what you're made of against a top opponent. That's nice, Shooky.
Shook, I want to ask you a quick question, though, because there was a kind of play in here that I want to go review. It sounds delicious to me, where a ref knocked down a defensive back on that Curtis Samuel touchdown. Love these things.
Yes. So it's like a ball into triple coverage. It's just like a desperation heave. It's kind of on target. The DB's going back. It's Cam Bynum. He's in perfect position to pick it off, and he collides with the ref. And the replay is fantastic from one angle where you see the ref stiff as a board falling to the ground. And as he's falling, he's still keeping his eyes on the play, not protecting or bracing himself whatsoever. Yeah, my fiance was sitting here, and I looked at her and said, "Hey, look at this replay. Look how this ref falls as if he's falling into a coffin." It was majestic. It was fun. It was.
We needed that ref fainting this week. It would have been a week late, but
that
would have been
almost would have pulled it off. And just another plug of the what we learned on NFL.com. I love the little next-gen stat of the game. Harrison Smith had a huge interception, which improved Minnesota's win probability by 22.9% from 14.7 to 37.6. That's what it's about.
Watch out there.
That's exactly what it's about.
I look at
Greg, what happened with your laptop?
Suddenly,
what was that?
like an anthem coming off of Greg's laptop in the middle of the show.
Here's the thing.
Trying to do a show, Greg.
It would have been light on the podcast, but now you're, making it into a whole
you know
meal.
why? Because it came on, and both Mark and I looked at you, and you just stayed frozen.
I had no idea it was coming from my computer, clearly. It was coming from an advertisement.
No one will ever hear any of this.
You know when what's not going to get an advertisement this week? We have some developing news here from after this game. Taylor Heineke, he's not buying any Nikes this week. They're Air Jordans in purple and yellow. I don't know. I'm colorblind. Not getting purchased. Sorry, Heineke. That interception.
That beat.
You know that's the colors of the Vikings, though, right?
I mean, yeah, but
You mean, that purple and yellow are their colors? You're not
gold,
sure?
Gold. I mean, I'm looking at it. Sometimes they have little subtle, gradations of these things.
Tough sitch for Greg.
Purple, certainly.
Shook, anything else to add on this particular game?
I can confirm that the Vikings are purple and gold. I thought for a second there that Taylor Heineke had basically secured the job no matter whether Carson Wentz was healthy or not, because this team plays with more energy with him. They just look like they want to be out there when he's on the field. He earns that with his play.
Come on, they're like one of their 2 touchdowns should have been an interception that the official, knocked over the players. Yeah. He even said after the game that guy deserves a game ball. I could not have stood. You said like the Vikings are a little bit of a soft 7-1. If Washington had somehow won that game with that being a key play, it would have been the worst 4-game winning streak in the history of the NFL. I've never seen a team get luckier than the Commanders have the last 3 weeks to win those 3 games. I didn't need it
They're
anymore.
so much more watchable with Heineke, in my opinion, than Wentz. So I don't really care about what the team's doing.
Oh, who locked it up?
Because of what Greg just said about the luckiest 4-game winning streak, I locked up the Vikings successfully. Thank you very much.
Great job, Justin. Yeah, good job, buddy. All right.
Another good employee.
Hey, just one and done. A hit it and quit it appearance this week, Shooky, but you nailed it as usual.
Oh, one more plug. NFL.com/underdogs, where I took the Lions over the Packers.
Look at that. Well done.
Way to go. Way to go.
Nick Shook.
All right, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's head to Soldier Field next. Another field goal game.
Empty backfield. Fields back to throw. Getting pressure. He's going to run with it. Gets off, and it's incomplete. Knocked away by X-Man. He wanted St. Brown, and X-Man got his hand in there, and the Dolphins will escape Chicago miraculously.
Well, the defense, man, struggled most of this day, but they came up big late in this game, Jimmy. Wow.
Jimmy Cephalo and Joe Rose, the call, WQAM. Everybody knows X-Man is former NBA power forward Xavier McDaniel.
Yeah.
Let's not go transferring the nickname.
Teammates with the glove back in the day.
Very good. Mark.
What?
Well, it's a different sport.
I
Some would
watched
say
a ton
very
of
different.
NBA back in the day, during that time period, that era.
Very nice.
Not so much now.
What do you think about the Seattle Sonics now?
I wish they still existed.
Oh.
Do you think that I am like? You think I would not know that team did not exist?
I
Come on
don't
now.
tend to, and this is in no way a takedown. I don't see you really as a sports fan as much as you are a fan of football and the Browns. So I didn't know whether you were totally plugged in on the move to Oklahoma City, for instance.
It's a fair question.
Tua Tagovailoa threw for 3 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill had 100. He's going to have over 2,000 receiving yards if he stays healthy. 143 more for Tyreek. And the Dolphins somehow held off Justin Fields, who's all of a sudden saying, hey, I'm not just making the leap in year 2. I'm heading toward the superstar club. But it wasn't enough to beat the Dolphins in their high-flying attack. Final score, 35-32. Let's welcome back Gravedigger. Who helped us out with this game. Justin, it feels like now it is to be assumed that Tua is going to throw for 303 touchdowns, no matter the opponent.
Tua looks really good in this offense, and he's hitting guys over the middle of the field. Tyreek Hill said after the game that he's the most accurate quarterback in the NFL, again, doubling down on his preseason comments. But I don't know if Tua's playing really well or if he's played 2 bad defenses in a row, because the Bears' defense could not get a stop in this game. But neither could the Dolphins' defense. This was a real track meet of a game, and not just because Justin Fields literally sprinted 61 yards to the end zone, but just up and down the field, both teams piling on yards, and it came down to those key stops. I mean, the blocked punt was the difference in this game, really. And
when was that? What's the story?
That was in the first half. It put the Dolphins up 21-10, but it was like their only stop, the Dolphins' only stop of the first half, and it led to immediate 7 points, which was obviously crucial and put the Bears in a hole that they continued to claw their way back and make it a close game. But every time they got close, the Dolphins would go ahead again.
It's 2 straight weeks.
Yeah.
And I hear you, and I was thinking the same thing because, the receivers are just so open for Tua, and the Bears defense seems to have phoned it in the last couple of weeks after trading away 2 of their best players. Eddie Jackson, who's been there forever, said out loud this week, it makes me wonder if I should start, trying. Why are we even trying here when you're trading away our best players?
Like we predicted on Thursday that this is going to cause havoc inside that locker room.
But how many offenses in 2022 can just put 30 on the regular on bad defenses? There's 4, maybe, and Miami's one of them.
Especially this year.
So there is no such thing to me as you're beating up on a bad defense, because no other offenses essentially are doing that.
That's kind of what my point was. I think this is just going to be, and you got to give a ton of credit to Mike McDaniel, who obviously has a scheme that he's connecting with the players. It works. And Tua, who is a guy that is a huge figure of suspicion and doubt. I believe I have a sandwich prop about him not making it through the season as a starter. I was not alone in those doubts, but he is coming up and delivering, and he's just a really good fit for the offense, which is ironic because I remember I was in Disneyland with my kids and my parents when the Tyreek trade went down, and the initial take was, I don't know if it's a great fit with this quarterback and blah, blah, blah. He is a perfect guy for this offense because the receivers get so open and he puts it on the money and lets them do the work. But let's talk a little Justin Fields.
Boy.
This is unbelievable. He ran for 178 yards in this game. That is the most ever by a quarterback.
Whoa.
And, Mark, we're seeing this now. This is the guy that, when they moved up to take him in the draft, this is the guy that they hoped they were getting. And it's a huge development in this season.
I know Bears fans want to be winning these games, and it's almost impossible with their defense. But this has to be the most encouraging development for Chicago fans in a decade plus, if not 2 decades, 3 decades. They haven't had a quarterback for so long.
Hey, they made that NFC Championship game. Don't take that away from Jay Cutler.
But for the exact reason that you kind of knew you didn't have the guy that was going to take you all the way. I don't know what's going on with Justin Fields in the future, but when I look at Luke Etsy, to me and what they've done, because it's a defensive head coach, Matt Eberflus. Etsy's running the show there, and it gives me shades of what the Eagles did last year with Jalen Hurts, when it's let's tailor this around our quarterback, let's become run heavy and get it any way we can. And if Justin Fields between now and next season, the same way a la Hurts did, grows even more as a passer, you're looking at, I think, right now the second best running quarterback in the league behind Lamar Jackson, and maybe the best.
Justin Fields was unstoppable with his legs today. I think there was only 1 third down he tried to take off with his legs that he didn't convert, and the Bears converted 10 third downs on 16 attempts today, which is, just incredible. They really couldn't stop him when he ran the ball, and he actually made 2 plays on the final drive that could have been at least leading to a game-tying field goal or a game-winning touchdown. The first one, a little controversial, targeting Claypool, could have been called for pass interference. Could have
that
not.
Should have.
Especially with the way this game was officiated. The first drive for each team, they got some semi-weak pass interference calls downfield. So that one definitely should have been a pass interference. And then we saw the highlight of the last play, which the announcers gave Xavier Howard credit for getting his hand in there. But that was a drop by Equanimous St. Brown that Justin Fields made the right throw on the money, and the receiver did not catch the ball, and then they lose the game.
Right.
So
that was not a stop.
Right.
And there's a little concern. It's not like their traditional passing game for Fields worked today. They had 123 yards on 28 attempts. But if I'm the Dolphins, I'm getting a little concerned about the defense. I think one of the reasons they gave up a first-round pick for Bradley Chubb is they've been a really disappointing defense this year. They've been, I would say, one of the more disappointing defense in the year. It's been totally papered over by the offense, but they're not expecting to be a bottom 10 defense.
Well, it's
or
the
worse.
same scheme with some of the same coaches.
Players. So that's a concern. They haven't been great in third and short. And then just before we move on, it is Luke Getsy. Etsy is the online marketplace where people come together to sell, buy, and collect.
I thought I said Getsy.
Unique items, often little trinkets, handmade.
I thought I said Getsy.
Things.
But by the way, thanks a lot, Greg. That's a really great way to correct someone you're working with as a teammate for 10 plus years on the show.
Just so you know,
twice. It was twice.
Give me a break.
There are serpents everywhere around you because someone got in my ear to say, call him out. He doesn't know how to say Getsy.
Oh, no. He didn't in my ear.
And I shut it. I said, you know what? I'm going to let Mark roll here. But there was another snake slithering your way.
But
I've written its name many times.
It's interesting. They can confirm behind the glass. There was no snake in my ear. I was the snake. I want to
only Greg would just make sure everyone knew that. I must clarify. The evil was all my own.
If it wasn't a funny online marketplace where you can get little nice items if you just want to kind of
Well, I know what Etsy is too.
You have your mood board and you're looking to pick out some things. Me and all my friends are jerks.
I'll buy you a mood board.
All right, let's keep moving, gentlemen. Let's head to A-Town. That's Atlanta.
And this will be for the game or overtime. Chargers win in a walk-off if it goes through. Snap good. Hold good. Kick is up. It is good. Cameron Dicker for the win.
There he is. The erstwhile voice of God of the Around the NFL podcast. Really always and forever. Matt Money Smith, KYSR with the call. Cameron Dicker. Dicker the kicker. Kicked a game-ending field goal 3 days after he was signed as a free agent. And that lifted the Chargers over the Falcons 20-17. Dicker also made a 31-yarder with 5.5 minutes to play to tie the game. Also, I must say, he went to the same college as Justin Graver, our producer, which apparently is very important to some people.
Why do you have to say that?
People like that stuff. I don't know.
They do.
It is a thing. Greggy, the Chargers found a way here, and despite them being somewhat underwhelming on balance this year, they get into the halfway of their midway point of their season. Easy for me to say, in good shape at 5-3.
Yeah, they gave the game ball to old Dicker. I think it's the third different kicker that's gotten a game ball.
Dicker the kicker?
From Staley this season after the game, which only the Chargers could pull off. I learned nothing about either of these teams. It was the most predictable game of the year in terms of all the strengths you expected, all those storylines, all the narratives throughout the course of the season on both sides exactly played out.
It's a great call. The narratives are very strong with these two particular teams in terms of accuracy.
It's like the short passing from Herbert, never going downfield. Yep. Absolutely no pass rush for Atlanta. Yep. Atlanta held the ball, both these teams, with these long drives, and Atlanta started the game running it really well. Yep. And then, of course, there's a crazy ending that has to involve kickers where something bizarre happens. The Chargers little twist on it this time, though, was that as they're going in for the most perfect 4-minute drill of the season, and I always love it when the team gets it with just over 4 minutes left, and then the announcer explains the 4-minute drill. And we've watched a lot of football, so we've heard that explanation. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but they explain, like, okay, they want to take all the clock down, and that's exactly what they were going to do.
Eli in 42 is an example.
It's a great example.
That was a good example. No, it wasn't really, right? They needed a touchdown there. The 4-minute drill is like you want to take all the time off, and then you want to, win it at the end, and
I
you're
think
trying to burn
we just
it.
like bringing that game up.
Or
right?
46.
That was good.
Yeah, that also was a good game.
Another nice drill. That
was
Mario
a nice
Manningham
one.
down the sideline there.
But this time, as like the Chargers are bleeding the clock, and when they got the ball back, I was like, oh, the Chargers are winning this game. Because every stop that Atlanta made, and it felt both ways, felt like a miracle in this game. They get inside the 10-yard line. Austin Eckler fumbles it, and the Falcons pick it up and start running down the sidelines. I want to.
Let's listen to it.
One of the plays of the year.
Herbert to Eckler, and Eckler gets upfield, gets inside the 20. The ball comes out. Ball comes out. The Falcons have it up the right sideline. And that ball comes out again, and the Chargers fall on it at the 43. My goodness. With 34 seconds left, back-to-back fumbles. We got to see if Eckler was down. Cue up the yakety sacks.
Money loves it. So, Greg, I think you tweeted this. It was like chargering versus falconing, and no one lived.
Right. The Taquan Graham fumble, he shouldn't be blamed for it, the defensive lineman who picked up the ball, but it was so sad because
he fumbled it.
He wasn't touched. It wasn't like he was tackled.
Right.
He was just a big man running with the ball, and eventually the ball came out.
I love when fumble recovery guy fumbles. It's a rarity, and it's enjoyable.
So
I feel like it happens a lot, actually.
A lot? I
mean,
half
the time, the guy who picks it up fumbles.
Yeah,
maybe getting a little greedy there.
Yeah.
The percent, but he wasn't. He was just running. He was just running, and the ball came out for no particular reason other than he's not used to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you've self-scouted yourself enough to know that if I'm running and untouched, I might just drop the ball, then you avoid that. I'd say.
Credit to Herbert, though, who basically had to pull off 2 game-winning drives on the same drive. Like Derwin James said, I knew they were resetting downs because I play Madden. Because the ball changed possession. So the Chargers then get a first down at the 46. Got to get back in field goal range with only 30 seconds left. And Herbert has like just a seed over the middle to Joshua Palmer. Any game you can survive without Keenan Allen and Mike Williams is a good one. What are you making a face on the seed? I'm just saying.
No. I'm just reading. There's a standalone sentence paragraph in the AP Gamer that reads, teammates lifted Dicker on their shoulders following the game winner. It's just funny. It's a good sentence.
Well, it's his name, Dan.
I know. It's a good sentence.
They survived in advance.
You know who's funny? Also, Jonathan Vilma, who I like. He's one of the Fox dudes, and he's a little rough around the edges as a broadcaster, which is one of the reasons I like him. And he'll say things where you'll kind of do like a double take, like, oh, you don't usually hear that emanating out of a booth in a professional setting. Let's listen to this after a particularly vicious Cordarrelle Patterson run. He had 2 touchdowns in his return, by the way.
Cordarrelle Patterson is a grown man, Kenny. I am so glad I don't play football anymore. I don't want any part of that. You just ran over a linebacker like that. Jesus Christ.
It's like, you know what? Every week, Kenny Albert has to ask him, like, are you allowed to say that on television? Because there's been like 3 or 4 of these moments.
I felt that way.
That's a drop, by the way.
Yeah, I felt that way. He stole that man's soul. It was Drew Tranquil who had a
Jesus Christ
interception of the game. It was vicious. It was vicious.
Oh, man.
Your boy Tyler Algier, by the way, 44-yard run, 99 yards on the ground. So he's playing really.
It's not official.
Well, that's why I said
player.
Your boy, not your guy.
Player,
he's not an official guy.
Yes.
I do feel like, when I pinpointed him and was giggled at by Greg a couple weeks ago, that once again, another fine performance by the young player.
That's why I was
Meanwhile, another week is ticked off the clock in terms of processing, so now we're down to like 6 weeks, I believe.
Just in time for the wild card appearance.
Speaking of processing, I do want Marcus Mariota to speed things up a little bit here sometimes when he does go back to pass and make a play in terms of when they're improvising. They pass too much in this game, which I didn't think I would say about them. Especially in the second half, they were passing too much on second and third downs when they could have just run the ball. And Mariota is just not an accurate quarterback at all. And like when he's trying to make a play out of nowhere, they never make a play.
Well, it's like Kyle Pitts, 7 targets, 2 catches, and there was a couple deep shots where like Mariota just was so off target.
Everyone is under 500 in the NFC South. again now that Atlanta's lost.
Bad division. Bad division. Everybody is over 500 in the AFC East now, by the way.
Great division.
We'll get to the Patriots.
Exciting division.
In a little bit. You know who else thought they had a win today? The Raiders. But they didn't.
They snap it quickly. They pitch it to the right. This is Etienne inside the 5, into the end zone. Touchdown! A touchdown run by Travis Etienne, and Jacksonville has taken the lead.
Right there is a major candidate in the comeback player of the year race. Travis Etienne, who's becoming a star for the Jaguars. He ran for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns, just spiting that vicious scorpion woman, Liz Frank. Trevor Lawrence also played very well, bouncing back from some down efforts, and Jacksonville wins a close game. That's nice. 27-20 over the Raiders. However, Greggy, that 27-20 doesn't tell the whole story here. At one point, this thing looked like it was in the bag for the silver and black. Those are their colors, by the way, Greg.
No, yeah, it was 17-0. And I wanted to start positive. We will get to positive Jaguars talk, but you led me here, and so I might as well go. 17-0 in the first half of this game. Derek Carr played a perfect first half, essentially. Devontae Adams had 9 catches, I think for over 130 yards in the first half alone, or 146 yards in the first half alone. Throwing to Devontae Adams in the second half, Derek Carr was 1 for 8.
Oh, no.
Throwing overall in the second half, Derek Carr was 6 for 16 for 33 yards. They actually got the ball 4 separate times after that ETN touchdown with the chance to take the lead, and they didn't do it any time. It was really the Jaguars' defense that ended up closing this game out. The Jaguars' offense, per usual, kind of didn't quite finish it off, even though they did a much better job overall. You can't kill them when they came back from 17-0, but there's just something about this Raiders team that they've got like a loser's mentality.
Yeah, well, there's an incredible stat out there. They are 53-5 since the year 2000 when they've been leading by 17 or more points in a game. Of those 5 losses, 3 of them have come this season under Josh McDaniels.
God.
Right. It's even great. It was like
this is who they are.
They had lost 3 total games up 17 in their last 628 games, and they have 3 this season. The Raiders have already given up as many 17-point leads as any team in the history of the NFL. They've like tied the worst, and they've now got 7 games to break that record.
Mark Davis is not Al Davis at all. However, I wonder if there's some serious buyer's remorse right now after this just a horrendous season the Raiders are having. And this, remember, rewind back to the end of August, this was not what anyone was expecting. And in fact, there were some people that thought that they could win the AFC West or at least give the Chiefs a real run for their money. So for them to be buried now at 2-6 and almost dead before we even sniff Thanksgiving is stunning. Let's hear Derek Carr, by the way, who was biting his tongue, to say the least, when asked about what has gone wrong with this team.
It's the third time you guys have blown a 17-point lead this year. Any similar sense or any similar feeling that you can look back on?
You know, I think there's a lot I want to say, but if I'm honest, I don't need to say it here, and there's things that will be said. There are things that need to be addressed and all those things, but I think as a whole, the urgency part of it, that after 30 minutes of football, we have to learn that the game is not over.
Here's the thing, though. He was...
What is that accent?
Right there. What do you mean, what's the accent?
I don't know. It's like this weird...
Sort of a stew of accents.
Twang that gets more dominant as he continues his speaking.
Well, Fresno, maybe there's an accent in Fresno, and then he went to...
I think he lived in Texas for a big chunk of his life.
It sounds like Jerry Jones's brother Cletus, who never left Oklahoma.
I love that quarterback.
I'm glad we heard that because, I think he has to be self-reflective because the comeback started in the first half when Carr had an open Amir Abdullah for a touchdown and totally underthrew it, and that led to 3 points instead of 7. And Carr missed a ton of throws in the second half. There were some miscommunications, but the game ended with him not giving Devontae Adams a chance to make a catch on the back shoulder throw. And then he's too hot for Hunter Renfrow, throwing it like really hot and too hard and high on 4th down, and that's how the game ended. Like it was a rough second half. But I give the Jaguars credit, who sent a lot of blitzes his way, who did create a lot of pressure. I've been getting on their defense, and their defense had a nice day. And Lawrence had. I think we've said this a few times this year, but I really do think this was the best game of his career.
All right.
It couldn't have been any cleaner. Like, Next Gen Stats had it as the highest success rate for drop-back passing since a Mahomes game last year, which that was surprising to me, but it makes sense because basically every time they dropped back to pass, they picked up 7 or 8 yards, and, like, he made no mistakes. There was nothing flashy, but he also ran for 53 yards. That was key to the comeback. Like, he played well.
The one thing that I think is really concerning for the Raiders, too, is I started to get on board a couple weeks ago thinking the way they're running the ball, this can be their identity. 38 yards last week in an absolute no-show, 24-0 loss to the Saints, 70-something today against a defense you can run on.
Right. They're bad with the lead, I think, because other teams, they should be able to run with the lead, but they're bad because then other teams just start throwing every down, and that's great against the Raiders because they just can't cover anyone, especially over the middle of the field. Christian Kirk, it wasn't flashy, 8 for 76 and 1, but he was awesome. His route running and the quality of his catches, he made a huge
Him and
difference.
Lawrence have had good chemistry all year.
Big game.
Self-doubt is a disease, and the Raiders have it when it comes to closing these games. Let's take a break, and we'll continue on. Welcome back. Let's now move to Foxborough, the site of the lockiest lock that there was ever a lock of. It was Locky.
Ellinger takes the snap. He's in the end zone. He's pressured to throw. Cost a tip. And picked off by Jonathan Jones. Runs out of a tackle right into the end zone. What a day for the Patriots cornerback.
Judon was on the field there. It's an underneath crosser. Ball gets tipped. Jones in the perfect spot. Goes down to the knee. Picks it up. Gets the lead block. Takes it in for a pick 6.
Is that? I don't think I'd ever heard Zolak give analysis like that.
No, that was layered in depth.
It was more of a retelling of the play, but even then, yes.
For him, though, it was very nuanced.
Right.
It painted a picture for the listener.
Inaudible, like yelps and screams.
In between, like, chugging a beer or two, I would assume. I don't know that for sure.
Bob Sochi and Powerade with a call for WBZ. Matt Judon and Josh Uche combined for 6 of 9 Patriots sacks. I don't know if Matt Ellinger's the guy. And the New England Patriots beat up on the Colts 26-3. The Pats are 5-4, moving above 500 for the first time this season as they reach their bye week, followed by that big showdown against the Jets. Mark, I said this is the lockiest lock game ever because me, you, Gravedigger, and the Wessling Zoo all locked it up. And it kind of went exactly how we predicted, it looks like.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, keep it going.
Had to play it 3 times for 3 locks. I did not lock them up. Also, you said Matt Ellinger. It's Sam. That's okay. Hook 'em horns.
These guys love to put us on the spot here with these names.
Who knows? I would have come around and corrected myself, but then Justin chose once again to sandbag the host of the show.
I learned my lesson from last week.
But you didn't.
It's unfair.
You did not learn
Well, I didn't jump in immediately. I just
No,
that one you could let go.
No, thank you, though.
It was still a slimy procedure by you.
Sorry.
Right.
Gravedigger.
Very on brand by the best man.
Ellinger.
That would be a funny nickname. Just a very sarcastic, the best man.
He did a great job this weekend.
The speech go. I had that land.
It went very well.
Your bit.
It went well. I told the joke that everyone on the Friday Fun Show told me not to tell with a lot better delivery, and the entire place erupted in laughter.
Erupted.
Why did it work better, do you think?
It was Kansas funny.
Yeah. It's like middle of the country.
No, but also
and we love
the
middle of the country.
The joke had been a running bit throughout the whole day, so it was like a nice.
So original too.
You know what?
Well, what did you mean by Kansas funny there?
No, I just think different values, different sense of humor. Probably more in line in like CBS sitcom fans, things like that.
Plus, you're rooting for someone at a wedding to say anything kind of light, and then everyone's going to I'm not saying that this was over-celebrated. It certainly feels that way to me. But
Common man rankings just taking a little bit
No, that's
of a
fine.
dip here.
I think there's probably a lot of people in Kansas also with a very cerebral sense of humor that shows like Arrested Development and
absolutely
those type of
absolutely
shows. I'm just saying this crowd in particular seemed to.
It's a multifaceted community.
I mean, it erupted. He made it sound like it was.
They were also
It was
willing,
like Chris Rock in Madison Square Garden.
They were willing and ready to laugh at anything.
There are a lot of Mr.
Exactly.
Show fans in Kansas
thank
also.
you that you can see that, Gravedigger, by the way, that you can understand the environment that you were successful in from a comedic angle.
Absolutely.
Right. After I was so unsuccesscial on Friday, I understand why it was a different situation.
All right.
That was it for Colts Patriots.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, Matt Ryan was in a bad position. Sam Ehlinger is in a bad position. You're playing behind the most expensive offensive line in the NFL right now, and it's just a shock how far they've regressed. We've been seeing it all year. They opened the game with 6 punts, including a block punt that basically ended the game, because all the Pats needed to do in this was like put up 13 points, and to your point, it's about the lockiest lock of all time. The Colts were 0-14 on third down. That's kind of hard to do.
Almost set the NFL record. Was 0 for 15 is the NFL record.
0 for 14.
I mean, that's the only thing they achieved, but was not setting the record. Ehlinger had 43 net yards passing because he had 60 yards lost on these 9 sacks. I mean, just there was not a single drive where it really looked like he had a chance or they had a chance. There was no Jonathan Taylor. I mean, they were in a tough spot against the kind of game that Bill Belichick sits around dreaming of, having to deal with an Ehlinger. Not deal with, he had to deal with Belichick in reverse. It was a bloodbath, and I'm not that impressed. The only reason I thought the game was a little questionable for our lock early on was that the Pats offensively are a paint-by-numbers eyesore, and Mac Jones just continually looks uncomfortable. And Ramondre Stevenson is running the ball really well, and he has been for a while now, and he was sort of all they had with no Damian Harris. But they grew stronger as the game went on, but not so much their offense. And I think guys like DeForest Buckner and the Colts offensive line handled the Pats, or the Colts defensive line handled the Pats front 5 that were missing guys, and it was a tough watch. It was a rough and tumble watch. That, like, cool. If you're the Patriots, nice win. I wouldn't float around town bragging about it all week long.
Right. They averaged 3.3 yards per play.
Their defense was awesome, though.
Like the Patriots averaged 3.3 yards per play, which would be, one of if that was over the course of the season.
This game sounds terrible.
It felt like it was 6.5 hours long.
There was a total of 19 first downs in this game. The Colts only averaged 2 yards per play. It's crazy to me that the Patriots are 5-4, and they really have shown an ability to steamroll and smother bad or limited quarterbacks. They don't have a ton of them.
That's a good skill to have.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have a ton of them left on the schedule, but they do have Zach Wilson after the bye, because if this Patriots team even had the 2021 Patriots passing offense, you would say this is a very spicy team that could make some noise in the playoffs.
Well, they'd be 7-2.
But they aren't that team. Not
Instead
right
of 5-4, they're probably 7 wins.
I give Matthew Judon a lot of love, though. They don't make a lot of big free agent splashes in New England. I guess they have more than they've been given credit for over the years. But when they signed him, that was a surprising move. It was surprising that the Ravens let him go. And he went from having a great year a year ago to an even greater year this year. I mean, he is having an outrageous all-pro type of season. And despite their personnel looking terrible on paper coming into the year overall, I mean, they're like a top 5 points allowed defense.
Judon.
No, he's not one of my guys.
You got on him a little bit at the end of last year, but he was hurt. I think he's one of your guys.
He was at the beginning of last year. I mean, I've always liked
Once he's
Judon.
one of your guys, he's forever one of your guys.
Okay, that's good. They get a week off. They can enjoy it.
Justin, why did he go to UT or something? Why are you throwing your arms up? What's up?
No, nothing. I'm being a professional as we take the podcast.
Right. The Titans
you're
are playing
watching
right now.
the Titans. Have you paid attention to any of this?
I give you a pass for
and
this,
do you
Justin.
feel ashamed that Sam Ehlinger went to your college at this point?
No.
Oh, we're doing this again.
Sam Ehlinger's last year at UT, he had no pass protection and he looked bad.
So close to moving on.
And I expected him to look bad for the Colts, and he's looked pretty bad. So
3-5-1.
By the way,
not all
Jonathan
3-5-1s are equal.
By the way, Colts to finish 4th in the AFC South. Not that looking that bad anymore.
Jonathan
Texans
Jones
are still there.
Jonathan Jones had a spicy blocked punt in this, and then the interception at the end. I mean, he had a great game.
Nice day.
Their defense, when I say don't float around town bragging about the win, the defense can.
One half of the team can. The other half must stay home during the bye week and reflect quietly.
I'd hope so.
Another team that's reflecting right now, the Panthers, because they got whooped in Cincinnati.
Burrow takes the snap, gives to Mixon, bouncing it wide to the left. Penalty flag down. He's at the 10, 5 into the end zone for what could be his 5th touchdown.
Offside.
Defense.
Yeah. How about that? How about that? Touchdown.
A 15-yard run for Joe Mixon, who has just set the Bengals single-game record with 5 touchdowns in a game, and we still have nearly 20 minutes to play.
And he didn't even score a single touchdown after that. Slacker. 5 touchdowns for Joe Mixon. They don't all land. Mark looked at me like I had an elbow growing out of my forehead.
No, I like what you did there.
You gave me a very solemn, like...
I was just, my mind was on something else at the moment.
Were you watching the Titans-Chiefs game also?
If you're someone listening at home, there is a 70-inch television.
Do I have to go full dad and say no more television in the studio?
I was trying to do 2 things at once.
Because I'm in front of the TV, so I can't see it. But I'm starting to worry that first the producer and now one of the co-hosts maybe aren't paying attention to the podcast anymore during the taping.
Your joke was brilliant when I came around to recording it in my mind.
Anyway, Joe Mixon rushed for 153 yards. And yes, 5 touchdowns, 4 on the ground, 1 through the air. Bengals jumped out ahead 35-zip in this game. Basically, he's telling Gregg Rosenthal, by the way, hit the brake on all your criticisms of our offense and our offensive line because we could do this. 42-21 was the final, which doesn't even begin to tell those 3 garbage time touchdowns, led by Baker Mayfield, by the way. Mark, what did you see in this game? Why was it so easy for Cincinnati and so hard for P.J. Walker, who was history by halftime?
I think we talked about week after week that where is the ground game from a year ago and the balance that it brings to an offense missing Chase. And it just came in waves today. And Mixon looked like last year's Mixon. It was absolute domination at halftime, because I don't really count anything that happened after halftime in this game. It was just like ultra garbage time. 311 yards to 32. 21 first downs to 1 first down for the floating Panthers. 21-plus minutes of time possession. So a lot of what happened was the Carolina offense totally breaking down and unable to sustain anything. P.J. Walker was yanked at halftime for Baker Mayfield because he was 3 for 10 for 9 yards with 2 bad interceptions.
So you're saying it wasn't a good fantasy spot start in my 2 QB league? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I am saying that.
Okay.
Negative points. That's
I'm sure you figured that out before I confirmed that for you.
I did.
But if this is, I don't know, because it's like, what was going on Monday night, and then you're this. It's like, are you that sort of all over the map as a Bengals team? But if there's anything to take forward, if they can do this on the ground and be this balanced, it changes everything. It changes the way that a defense is going to deal with the Bengals. And today it showed up, and it just was like kind of reminded me of when they started to turn the corner a year ago. It looked like that team.
They're high-level games this year, and really there's been a few, but 2 in the last 3 weeks against lackluster opponents are as high-level offense as we've seen in the NFL this year. And it gives you some hope, especially with the bye. And the schedule's reasonable that they can survive because the AFC's deeper. It's going to be tougher to make the playoffs in the AFC. We'll see if the Ravens win on Monday night, but it's going to be tough to win that division too. It's huge to win as many games as you can until Chase gets back.
Yeah, and you're right. They're hitting their bye now. So you've survived 2 weeks without Chase. You have a win and a loss. The Cleveland game on Monday, I don't want to call it an aberration because that was...
But maybe it was, though. Some of these division games just take on a strange
an island
complexion.
game on the road against the rival that kind of owns you. It was not a good look, but at the same time, every team has stinkers now and again. So I was willing to be open-minded about how they would recover from that, and I know the Panthers stink, but they also were very competitive the week before in a near win over
and
Atlanta.
The week before that.
They couldn't get over it. They recorded the greatest play in the history of the NFL, Dan, and I wasn't recovered from it on Thursday.
P.J.
and
Walker
they clearly
wasn't.
weren't either. That ended up being like the end of his starting career potentially.
Going through P.J. Walker's head while he's sitting in the locker room bench, he's saying, 7 days ago, I made the greatest play in the history of the sport, and now my career is in tatters. The pinballing of the sport. It's one of the reasons I love it so much.
You do love the NFL. I've been
love
picking
it.
that. You know who else loves the NFL?
Jesus Christ, I love it.
I forgot to mention this, but during the Colts-Patriots game, when it was still very low scoring, Marc Sessler was quoted saying, "I love this game so much."
Well,
about Colts-Patriots.
I'll tell you why, because it was so. Maybe this isn't for
Had to
everyone.
get that out there.
It's not
He's
everyone's
loyal to
cup of
football.
tea, but
It feels good to football.
when a game is so bad, and I could tell it was going to be so bad, it's like I start to love it. And at the same time, I love these blowouts, and I was covering this
you
Bengals
love this little
Panthers
combination
thing.
of
Like, it was
games.
a great
this
little,
was perfect
great
for you.
little Sunday afternoon.
Mark likes it that his games are so bad that he doesn't have to watch his games, and then he watches the other games. It's a weird
follows-
strategy.
I track every game.
It follows a path. All right, let's take a break, and we'll be right back. All right. It's time to check in on the late games, and let's head to the desert where the Cardinals were facing the surging Seahawks.
Ken Walker has 104 yards on the day on 25 carries. First and goal from the 5. He's going to carry it again. And he's going to turn upfield, and he's going to try to spin out of a tackle. He gets a push. Does he get there? He does! Touchdown, Seahawks! And they just shoved him across the line to make. You can't knock this kid off his feet. And he scores his second touchdown of the game and all but seals it.
Steve, we're able to call KIRO. The Seahawks are at it again. And Kenneth Walker, a major reason why the rookie runs hard for a $109 and 2 scores, including that clincher you heard there. Final score 31-21. Seahawks over Cardinals. The first place Seattle Seahawks. Greggy, another special day for you.
Oh, yeah. You said you're enjoying the football today.
It's great, all the football.
I'm enjoying this Seahawks team more than maybe anyone except for Pete Carroll. This has to be a fever dream. This is the team that he's dreamed of forever.
There are people that have followed that team their entire lives.
No, I've been a lifelong fan the last 8 weeks, now 9 weeks, and my enjoyment is right there.
You're maddening.
Near
That should
the
play
top.
well.
I don't really believe that, but I do believe that this is everything Pete Carroll's ever wanted out of a football team. Like young, long, rangy cornerbacks just breaking up plays and a pass rush full of like 320-pound men, Shelby Harris and Poona Ford and Nuoso, who's a little lighter, but he's getting in the mix in this game and harassing Murray, and they're so young and they're so exciting, and you have a decision maker in Geno that for the most part is making really great throws and good decisions, had an up and down day today but ended up playing well at the end. But most importantly, you've got a running game that closes the ball game. Kenneth Walker came into this week leading the NFL in yards per carry in the fourth quarter, and it was another fourth quarter where the Seahawks just wore another team down, and this guy just makes you miss. He's so creative when he runs. I don't know who he reminds me of. To me, he's like one of one. He's got a little bit of Le'Veon Bell in him, but it's not Le'Veon Bell. I know he's like got the patient thing where he waits forever, and sometimes he's looking for a big play, and it costs him. That happened today once or twice, but my God, is he a talented back, and he closed this Cardinals team out no matter what they did on defense.
Dream scenario for Pete Carroll there because he does have a young dog that he can hand the ball off to.
K9 is his nickname.
Is it? That's great. That's a perfect nickname
works.
As long as he's not offended by it.
No, it's his. He's got his own very professional website where you can get good t-shirts. I'm just saying it's really well done. I went to it.
This is going to sound like Dan's doing the Geno thing again. I'm not. It's more kind of like good for Geno because he's having such a great season that even it seems like he gets away with his mistakes for the most part too. And he threw a pick six in the game, didn't get away with that.
On a screen, that was a great play.
And had a couple of balls that probably should have been picked, including one that preceded his last touchdown pass. So it's just like even when he's the old Geno, that's getting papered over by either good fortune or him making up for it later in the game. So I'm just like, I watched Geno because I've watched so many of his games in my life, and I'm like, that guy's still in there, but this is also starting to feel like one of those kind of special seasons where things just go right for him, and I'm trying not to take any credit away from him.
You are.
And it sounds like it is, but if you watch this game, you'll notice this game could have been very different if Arizona just made some plays that they didn't.
I mean, the pick six was an incredibly unique play by Zaven Collins. It wasn't just a terribly thrown ball or something or him not seeing the field. I think that Geno, the thing I like about him is that every week he's going to give you 4 or 5 throws that are beautiful. And they talked about this, and maybe this doesn't matter to most people, but they talked about the fact, to your point on Pete Carroll, that Pete Carroll, like Geno Smith is just Pete Carroll's kind of quarterback, that he has they said he has a special affinity for the journey he's been on. I think to go be believed in by your coach and believed in by your team, that matters, and it helps you get out of some of the dark places you get into, and he's done that. He hasn't had a lot of bad quarters, but today, early on, it was like, we'll see, or is this the Geno game we're waiting for? And he worked his way out of it.
Right. I think Vance Joseph, the coordinator for the Cardinals, threw a lot at him, and Geno's a guy who wins before the snap, much like his former mentor, Eli Manning. The similarities continue. And I don't think he knew exactly what he was seeing before the snap a lot of time, and he was holding on to the ball too long. That's an old Geno trait, and he took a couple bad sacks. But the difference, Dan, and you mentioned like he lucked out on one near interception in the red zone. It is one of his worst throws where he just a soft throw to DK Metcalf that he should have put up higher, and it probably should have been picked. The very next play, he puts a dime on a defender's back shoulder, which the chutzpah to make that throw even in tight quarters after you nearly threw an interception was incredible, and DK makes a great catch and they score. So you're right, like right after he made 2 of his worst throws of the game, he followed that with dimes for touchdowns. And
he's having a great year.
Right.
I am not. I'm
I
sure
I
I'm
agree
gonna
with
get
you
hit on Twitter or wherever the hell else, but like, it's just. He has made some mistakes and he's gotten away with it, but I
agree with you. I wrote in my notes this was one of his worst games for most of it, but like the rest of the team, they've really had a good sense of closing out these games in the second half, really all season, but especially last 2 weeks.
I think they're for real. I'm totally once the defense has gotten things figured out here, and we had another big game by their offensive rookie of the year candidate in the secondary. They're having a really nice run now where the defense, the running game, and the Geno Smith-led passing game, they're humming right now.
Yeah, and the division they're in, you would have thought that Arizona and the Rams would have been serious playoff contenders. And like so much of the NFC, they're falling off a cliff. And I feel like every time I looked up at this game, it was another Arizona Cardinals moment where Billy Price is whipping the snap over Kyler Murray's head. You got Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins jawing at each other. I kind of thought that was more just like teammates trying to but Greg and I talked about this a bunch, that Kyler Murray, I think he really, really is obviously frustrated and wants this stuff to go better, but his body language and facial expressions and leaning into people verbally on the sideline is another week-to-week thing, and they can't get past their own mistakes. They've been a better offense, obviously, with DeAndre Hopkins, who has 40 targets in 3 games
but not
here.
In this one. Woolen did a nice job on him when he was on him, and in general, he didn't do much today.
I guess my point there would be it's not enough.
And Robbie Anderson has given them nothing so far.
Oh, my God.
In fact, he was a net negative in this game, played poorly. So it's
negative
the same.
4 yards, Robbie Anderson.
Jason Zumwalt, the new voice of the show that you hear and a longtime Cardinals fan, he suggests that we don't even talk about the Cardinals today as a punishment for how atrocious they've been on balance.
That would
this season.
be rewarding them ultimately, and
I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't.
They deserve this verbal lashing.
And I know they got better when DeAndre Hopkins returned, but today it was back to the same old 5 yards per throw Kyler Murray.
Yep.
Where there was nothing deep down the field at all. Like the only offense that they consistently had came from Kyler scrambling. They had a couple decent runs from James Conner, but the passing game, it's another team that they've kind of shown us who they are. They're a station-to-station, bad offensive line offense, and you mentioned him getting upset. The thing that got me about Kyler getting so upset was it was the first quarter, and he was losing his mind. It reminded me a little of sometimes you see in a big tennis match. I know you love the tennis analogies.
Tennis is a completely different sport.
But when the guys are so edgy early in the match and getting upset at a not important point in the first set, it's he's not there, and that's what Kyler Murray is sometimes in these games. He's so frustrated at everyone, and it's 7-3, Kyler.
Your point is he's not John McEnroe, who would get upset but then go win.
Well, there you go.
I went and played tennis with my wife and 2 small children and utterly destroyed them on the court.
You know what?
I have tennis roots. I played tennis as a child.
I think I've underestimated your global sports fandom.
Yeah, you need to just maybe data wipe your preconceived notions and start again.
Not to mention his talent. He crushed those boys who have never played tennis before.
I think I might have eliminated their enjoyment of the sport that day.
Hey, that's also teaching a lesson. Know when to quit.
One last thing on the Seahawks here, by the way. They're going to Germany. They're going to Germany at 6-3. This is like a thing.
Why are you going to Germany at this point?
We should. Gino versus Tom Brady. This is like my dream game here.
We'd give him the week off, right? If he wanted to go follow his little new fetish.
I would, yeah. I'd clear that.
I mean, the NFL has not cleared that, but I think it's too late for that.
All right, let's move to the other late game played in Tampa. And, man, are the Rams dead? The champs might be dead.
First and goal, Brady in the shotgun, Otten stiff to the right side. Here's the snap. In play action fake, pass to the right side. Caught ball, touchdown Tampa Bay! Buccaneers take the lead with 9 seconds. Kate Otten, fire the cannons! Fire the cannons! Fire them again! 15-13 Bucks.
Gene Deckerhoff. WFUS. Tom Brady stepped to the podium after the 16-13 win over the defending Super Bowl champion Rams and said, "That was awesome. That was bleeping awesome." Because the Bucs, in another day where their offense struggled, they got the touchdown they needed, taking over with 44 seconds to play, and they go right down the field on the Rams, who are just dying after their offense could not salt away the win. So Brady gets it done. Greg, this was right after Mark, this was right after the previous drive where it looked like the Bucs had lost the game because another brutal wide receiver dropped by Scotty Miller in the end zone, but they get another chance and they make the most of it. Huge win.
Yeah, I guess whoever won this, you're going to avoid some of the heavy critique that would be coming your way had you been the loser, because there's a reason that we put this game here initially. Now, it finished with more drama than we expected, but 3.5 quarters in, this was
a little bit of a punishment here.
Yeah, a little bit of a lashing.
We were lashing a bit for running around, being called the game of the week and all this business, and then you produce a real stinker
They
for
were
most
just
of it.
all the players running around town. We're the game of the week.
Well, they were.
It was actually the game itself was running around everywhere. They're like, "Oh, you think the Bills and Jets are the? Who's got Romo? Who's got Nance? We're the game of the week."
Have you seen the schedule? We're the game of the week.
That's how I see it. Like,
we're the best.
The Rams, I mean, have unfixable issues. They have 206 yards of offense. Your offensive line, I mean, they kept sort of showing it over and over. Like, Vita Vea was one of the MVPs
he was
of this
awesome
game.
in this game.
And one of the reasons he's awesome, though, is they were showing that the left side of the Rams line just had these, like, open doorways where you can just skirt through and create total problems for, like, both sides. Like, I think Stafford, here's the thing. A year ago, Brady and Stafford had 84 touchdowns combined. They went into this game with 16. The Rams can't run the ball. Sean McVay said after, not good enough, not even close to good enough, and I'm part of that. And he said changes have to be made, and he reiterated that that's part of him. That includes him too.
They showed on the sideline after the go-ahead touchdown, McVay, and he just seemed just like a guy that was ready for the broadcast booth himself. And Tony Romo, who's in the booth with Nance calling this game, even though it's an NFC game, that always still messes with my head, for CBS. He brought up, and I brought up Aaron Donald and how he hadn't had a big year in terms of getting to the quarterback this year. And Romo provided some nice context on what he's seen when he watches the tape, which is that because they have so many issues in their secondary, not Jalen Ramsey, but on the other side, they have such a big cushion that they give the opposing wide receivers that opposing offenses are just attacking the Rams, getting the ball out quickly, negating Aaron Donald to a certain extent. And you didn't see the Bucs light up the Rams defense by any stretch. But in that last series, the ease in which they went right down the field and basically wiped out the Rams, it was like stunning to watch the D look that bad.
Well, their D played amazing in this game.
But they got away with the previous drive, Greg. Scotty Miller drop. Otherwise, that would have been a touchdown
My
drive,
point
too.
is, they got the ball, the Buccaneers, 7 times in the second half. Every one of those with a chance to go take the lead. And they kept getting stopped. Punt, downs, punts, and these aren't like go down the field and punt. These are like 3 and outs or 1 first down. They got that field goal, and then, yes, they did get lucky at the end. But Tom Brady used all of his experience in that drive. He played hurry up even when the ball was stopped. Here are the numbers of the play clock of how much time was left when they snapped the ball, even though the clock wasn't moving. 25 seconds, 21 seconds. Where is it here? I'm looking at my notes. 18 seconds, 17 seconds. And so he was not letting the Rams defense make any play changes, substitute at all. They were just sitting there. He was like, if I can keep them in this defense, I'm going to go down the field. And he played hyper speed, even though like the clock was stopped in all these. And that was some like Tom Brady stuff that was
I would also note that I don't think the Bucs win this game without their punter operating as an absolute star. Jake Camarda, he had a 74-yard punt in this game.
Camarda popping a big spot.
Longest by the Bucs. Ties a team record that goes back to December 14th, 1997 by old Sean Landeta.
I love Sean Landeta.
After that punt happened, this game had 15 of them. There were 614 punt yards by both teams and like 310 yards of total offense.
Wow.
I mean, you're getting to the point. Do we have the Ramsey sound where the Rams defense is feeling rightfully? I feel like that they're not.
Aaron
being
Donald
held up.
did have a big impact. He ended a drive with a sack in this, and ended the next drive, I believe, with a batted pass. So
right.
he did have
For
an
the
impact.
most part, they had a good day until it wasn't a good day. The Bucs had it 12 plays, 53 yards. You had the Scotty Miller drop, and then the Rams get the stop on 4th down with just a couple minutes to play, send the Rams offense back out there. They go 3 and out and gain 6 yards and burn 1 minute of the clock, which then allows Tampa Bay to get one more shot. And in 35 seconds, they go 60 yards for the score. Jalen Ramsey, one of the high-powered stars of this team in the secondary, after the game, the frustration is obvious. He's like, how many times do you need us to bail you out?
The defense should not have had to go back on the field. Gotta have some dogs who gonna go get it. Be like we shouldn't come to the sideline after a big stop like that, and our coaches or the other side or whoever telling us, man, we gonna need y'all one more time. We're gonna need y'all one more time. Like what the we made a big stop, turnover on downs with a minute and some change left, and no timeouts for nobody. You gotta have some dogs. It's like, man, all that. We gonna end this game right now. Good stop. We're gonna end this game for y'all. Like, we gotta play off each other in that sense. You know what I mean? That's what I mean by we shouldn't even have to go back out there, but it is what it is. It ain't the first time that this has happened. This has happened, multiple times this year, really.
And you could call that finger pointing if you want. I like it. It's honest.
I love it.
It's the star of the defense, or one of the top 2 stars of the defense, calling out what we all know, which is that they're playing well, but they're not getting help from the other side.
And, when we kill Aaron Rodgers in weeks past for dishing out critique but not really including himself at times, like the Rams defense got it done today. This is the kind of stuff that fractures and pulls apart a locker room.
Their loss in the NFC is not the same to me as, let's say, if the Bucs had lost this game. As crazy as the NFC,
the first place Bucs,
right? The Bucs are now tied for first place, and even if they were a game back, I would have always given the Bucs a chance to get themselves together in December, just because you never know. The Rams, on the other hand, like the Cardinals are at 3-6. The Rams are at 3-5. Are really falling behind in the NFC, where I think it's going to be more difficult to make the playoffs. And there's no signs of that it could get better. The players are there. They had 9 first downs. There are some crazy stats in this game. The Rams had 9 first downs. The Rams, after getting outscored in the fourth quarter here again, have been outscored in the fourth quarter of this year, 71-10.
Whoa, Shawnee McVay, what's up, buddy?
And then one last one, and this is the one that I just can't even believe. Cooper Kupp had 8 for 127 in this game, 2 long catches. He had that catch for the touchdown that looked just like the one he had to beat the Bucs last year in the playoffs. In throws that did not go to Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford dropped back to pass 22 times. In those non-Cooper Kupp plays, would you want to guess what they produced?
22 dropbacks?
22 dropbacks.
I would say they produced 50 yards.
I'm going to take the under 49 like you do on Price is Right.
They did not break double digits. They had 9 yards in those plays. 22 plays for 9 yards.
I just won.
When it didn't go to Cup.
I won.
Nice W. Nice W there.
That says it all.
Actually, we both went over. Price is Right rules, so no win for you.
Oh, you're right. Well, that's
It's not really Price is Right. It's a football podcast. What a sport.
It didn't even feel like the Bucs defense still hasn't forced a turnover in 5 weeks. I mean, they did a good job. They only allowed 206, but they haven't forced a turnover in 5 weeks. The receivers are still dropping passes. They still couldn't run the ball, and they're still running on first and second down like every time and putting Brady in a bad spot. So there was a lot of typical Bucs stuff until the end.
Right.
I don't know if this like good feeling just magically helps it.
That's exactly it. Because
had
had the Rams somehow pulled this off, like people are going to be going nuts on Tampa Bay. Instead, we kind of, if people don't watch or didn't see the game, although it was apparently being played in 100% of the nation, according to Jim Nance.
Yeah, I thought that was rude to the Seattle and Arizona game. He said 100% of the nation is getting.
Is that
this
true
game.
that if you're in Arizona or Seattle, that they're playing the Rams? I don't think that's the case.
I think it excludes the local markets where.
Although I guess it is on in those markets.
It is on, but you're right because it's
on CBS.
I think if you're and I think the Price is Right rule is you would wager 1, so you would say 1 yard.
Right.
You blew it.
Right. No, I could have, because I knew Greg wouldn't give us that stat if it was like 98 yards. It's like, well, there's a lot of bad offense right now, but I should have just gone hardcore 1.
Right.
One would have been pretty close.
Right.
Only
I would have
8
been
yards
shockingly,
off.
and I wouldn't sound like I really knew what I was talking about on top of just winning the.
I feel bad for the Rams.
Don't feel bad.
My daughter's a huge fan. I know they're sad back there.
Did she go to the Super Bowl last year?
She did.
Come on. It's good to learn both sides of the coin. The disappointment, that's important too in terms of growth, I find.
It adds to your character as a young person.
But I think one, and I know you would be, if you could just get one Jets Super Bowl.
Just give me one.
You would be happy forever. But if they followed up that season and looked like the 2022 Rams, those Sundays would be.
It would suck.
Pretty much just about as miserable as if they hadn't won the Super Bowl. They just would. It'd be a miserable experience.
Give me a chance to see if that's what would happen. That's all I ask.
Test that hypothesis out on your own.
That's it for this portion of the show. We will have the Sunday Night Football recap on the audio version of the podcast, which you could check out wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for watching. Until next Sunday, heed the call.